we've earmarked the proceeds for 21 projects,
Oh,
15 of which are going to be new BPO office buildings, which we are planning to build in places like Pampanga,
mm,
Bacolod, Davao. The objective of the group is to eventually put in, all the assets into MREIT,
whoa.
and or a significant portion of it, right? And to our goal is to be the largest office REIT in Southeast Asia.
Hi everyone, we are in for a very special treat today. I know everyone is excited about the newest REIT listing in the stock exchange. We have the president of MREIT and the CEO of Alliance Global, Kevin Tan, joining us in the podcast. Kevin, thank you so much for your time and for giving your insights with us in this interview.
Hi, Marvin. Thanks for having me in your show.
REITs started out in the Philippines last year. What pushed you guys to do it also right now, 2021, in the midst of the pandemic?
Well, as you know, this has been more than an 11-year journey for the country since the first REIT law was passed. But of course, certain policies had to change, and the tax regimes as well for the REIT, for the first REITs to actually be launched. And since last year till this year, one REIT after the other has been launching, in succession. I think that we see the market still quite stable, at least the capital markets. There's a lot of liquidity. Interest rates are low. We're putting into a REIT a sector that's quite resilient, which is the BPO sector. Effectively, that's what our REIT's all about. So I think that now is the best time than ever to do this IPO, and we're very excited about it.
For those who want to dabble into it but don't know what REITs are, what's the best way for you to convey this to people? Ano ba talaga yung REITs? What
Okay.
is it? Why is it an investment?
Just try to imagine that you buy a property, whether it's a home or let's say an office. And the way you want to make money is you rent that property out and you get rental income every month or every year. Now, try to imagine that in a scale of one building with tenants. No, of course, not everybody has the money to buy an entire building, right? So REITs, effectively, what they do is they take an entire building, they convert that onto small shares, in other words, fractional shares, and then they sell it to you and me, people who have a few thousand pesos that you want to invest. In the case of MREIT, okay, it's actually 10 of these buildings, right? And these 10 buildings have already 85 tenants in them, all paying rent. They've been there for 5 to 10 years already. So effectively, you're buying shares of these 10 buildings, right? So effectively, you are a landlord as well in your own capacity. So when you buy shares of these buildings, fractional ownership of these buildings, you make money two ways. No, again, you make money from the rent. So every quarter, we give rent out to you. You receive a dividend or your share of the dividend. Number two is that as time goes by, of course, the rent will increase. Economic situation improves. The value of these buildings should also increase in time, and so the shares that you hold should also be increasing in value every year. right? So you make money from the rent, you make money from the capital gains of the asset value.
If I were a person who has capital to invest, and since it's exposure into a mega world property, what would you say is its advantage as compared to, oh, I'll just buy a condo in any of those mega world properties and then have it rented out and then get revenue from it, versus buying the REIT as well? And if you like, I'll make it even more interesting. Buying Megaworld stock mismo as well. So MREIT versus Megaworld, or buying a Megaworld condo and having it rented out.
You buy a condo to live in it, right? You have extra money, you buy condo to rent it out. That's also great, especially in a Megaworld township. No? But effectively, the risk there is you have to manage it. You have to manage it. You have to rent it out. You have to find a client. You have to get a good rate. Diba? As opposed to a REIT is managed by an experienced property manager. You hire a property manager who is also managed by an independent board. There's also a fund manager. So it's very professionalized. You don't do anything about it. You just sit back and you just receive your dividends. That's effectively what it is. It's if you have passive, it's passive income. If that's how you would like to categorize it. No, that's what a REIT is. Now, of course, when you look at stocks, no, Megaworld stock included, the way you make your money there is usually through capital gains. No, so the stock appreciation. That's really that's the play of stocks. No, and then of course you get dividends as well. Megaworld stock also regularly gives dividends. If you have the liquidity, I'd say get both. Yeah.
Got it. I'll say this, and this is one of the reasons why I'm a big believer of REITs is normal Filipinos, as what we were talking about earlier, get to buy condos, properties, residential, but getting into REIT, not a lot of Filipinos can buy buildings. Not a lot of people can have exposure to office spaces, and this is a really, really good way to be diversified into something that not everyone can buy. And not just that, it's spread across in different locations. Like MREIT, you have in Eastwood, you have in McKinley Hill, and you have in Iloilo, which your property in Iloilo's amazing. It's something that, like, feeling mo nasa Metro Manila ka when you are in that when you're in that area. That being said, I want to transition into this. You have three locations, 10 buildings in those 3 locations. What was the strategy on why you picked those locations? And I was asking this offline. No? Bakit McKinley Hill lang, walang Forbes-town or Uptown, since they're also in the BGC area?
We carefully selected these locations. No, first, effectively, what we wanted to put in the REIT are properties that are within our township. So that's the first. That's the context behind our thinking. It has to be in the township, so that it can enjoy all the advantages of being in a integrated ecosystem. Because that's what a township is, right? A township. Our clients, they love locating in our townships specifically because the employees love being in the township. BPO companies, they only have one consideration where they go. It's where the employees are happiest. And in Eastwood, McKinley, and even in Iloilo, their employees live, work, play inside our township. A lot of them, the quality of life is just different, right? You have if you live in one of our condos, even with your friends, you don't have to drive. You don't have to commute. You can wake up 1 hour before your shift. Afterwards, you can have coffee, have a drink with your friends downstairs. Nothing to worry about, and everything is within walking distance. One of the things that we learned was that there is a new movement in Europe. Sort of segue muna. There's a new movement in Europe called the 15-minute city that they've started. They figured out during the pandemic, where they want to remaster plan cities like Paris, Barcelona, and they want everything that you need to be within 15-minute walking distance from where you live, including where you work. That struck us. We said, that's what we've been doing for the last 20 years in our townships, right? Everything is literally within 15 minutes or less. And you name it, you got your, place of work, where you live, where you go to church, medical facilities, groceries, restaurants, your salon, barber shops, you name it, your banks, everything is all within walking distance. And that is the concept of 15 minutes. Now, we have 26 of these townships all over the country, okay, in all shapes and sizes. Some are very like central business districts like Iloilo. Some are a little bit more tourism related, right? A little bit more like Boracay. But, these townships are all in different stages of development as well. We specifically chose townships that are relatively more mature already, that have a relative scale and have a good population, okay? Because we feel that kind of a setup makes the office buildings in that township more ripe for injection into the REIT. We wanted to, we also wanted buildings that were relatively more mature, so that they've already hit a certain escalation on the rent, good tenancy, and again, you enjoy the full benefits of a township that is matured. And that's what Eastwood, McKinley, and Iloilo is. They're relatively mature townships. There's, between these two townships, there are 300 to 400 shops, stores, there are malls, different malls, there are financial institutions, schools, groceries, several groceries in them. We even have a museum in Iloilo. We have hotels. So relatively built up na siya. Nandyan na siya. No? It's not one of those like in the middle of nowhere. It's just starting out. You don't get the full benefit of that. This is all fully integrated, fully built up. Now, another consideration that we had also, of course, is we wanted to make sure that the REIT it considers the location, right? That's what they always say, location. So if you look at the REIT, there's 10 assets. 8 of the 10 assets are in Metro Manila. Okay? And Metro Manila, let's face it, that continues, it's still the center of our economy, center of all growth for BPOs. It's still here. This is still the headquarters of all BPOs. Okay? So we wanted to make sure that we skew it more towards Metro Manila. Of course, we wanted to add a little bit of Iloilo, because Iloilo is a great story. It's one of our, we came into Iloilo 10 years ago, and the economy was predominantly agriculture. Today, BPO sector is one of the major drivers of their economy, and it's growing, and we're a market leader there as well. And this pandemic, all the demand was going to Iloilo. So that's why we added a little bit of that, just a little bit, but mostly it's Metro Manila. Half of our township, half of the assets are in McKinley Hill. And McKinley Hill is in Fort Bonifacio, right? I don't think any other REIT has this many assets in Fort Bonifacio. And let's face it, Fort Bonifacio right now commands the highest rent per square meter. And I think more than any others business district, that is really, when you say the BPOs, KPOs, the knowledge process outsourcing, that's the first address of choice. Fort Bonifacio, McKinley Hill. We had to make sure that we had 50% of our assets are from there. Which then again leads me to say that that's why I believe that this REIT is quite superior in that sense. Because when you want to look for a REIT, when you want to invest in a REIT, you always look at, like when you invest in a property that you will collect rent from, you always look at the location, right? You always look at where it is. In this case, it's not just the fact that the locations are superior, but it's also located within very active ecosystems that, by the way, gives more premium to these particular assets individually.
Well, you were describing that, no? I think there's one added thing that's so amazing about townships that a lot of people don't see. The safety of living there, that you can walk at 11 p.m. without being fearful that I'm okay, I can just walk from my coffee shop to my house. And I think that's the added benefit of a township system as well.
You touched on a very important point. The townships were originally conceived as safe enclaves, precisely for that reason. You have people living by themselves, women as well, and in this BPO sector, it's a 24/7 type of operations. So you have a night shift, right, as well. So you needed an environment where it's completely safe. But in this case as well, one of the things that we've learned even during the pandemic is that township living provides a different level of safety in that respect as well. Because the townships now were designed so that you can kind of be secluded from the rest of the city. You have your own entrance, exit, you have your own security, surveillance, etc. You have your own road networks, underground parking, etc. Passages, connectivity. But that also proved to be very relevant and important during a pandemic situation where you have to lock down and control movement and mobility. We were able to monitor people, keep them safe. And of course, the fact that you don't have to travel far to get your essentials was an added benefit, definitely. So that's why in our townships there was no major outbreaks. We were able to control it. And for the BPO clients, they love being in a township during the pandemic because their employees could just rent and they don't have to commute when public transportation was shut down. It was so easy for them to operate. And that's why we know now that the township living is now the new way of life, I think, if you talk about Metro Manila or living in the city.
Let's go deeper on the details of this listing. One of the first things that I'd normally ask as well, and one of the first things that I'd look at as an investor is, where would the proceeds of the listing go? What would you do with the money raised?
Megaworld actually right now has one of the largest land banks among all the developers. We have more than 5,000 hectares of properties all over the Philippines. And that continues to grow. Today, we have 26 townships. By end of the year, we'll probably be about 29 townships. We're probably going to introduce new 2 or 3 more townships, depending on the timetables. Our goal with the proceeds is to enable us to replicate our township model all over the country. Okay, because we've seen the effect firsthand in certain areas, like for example, as I mentioned, Iloilo. When we entered that 10 years ago, it was predominantly an agricultural economy, but they did have one thing that was very interesting. They had the largest number of graduates in the Visayas region, and that we saw that as an opportunity because for the BPO sector, they love to be in a place like that where there's a large pool of talent, and we'd like to think that because of our introduction of Iloilo Business Park and because of the township that we created there, that we've been able to help transform the economy a little bit of Iloilo. And now everywhere you go in the city, there are all these developments of BPO buildings catering to BPOs. We want to do that sana in other parts of the Philippines because we feel that is the best way. First is obviously the pandemic has also taught us that Metro Manila is a bit too congested. It's too dense already. I mean, the population growth in the city or the migration to Metro Manila in the last 10 years is it's tremendous, no? And mind-boggling already, right? So it's time to decongest NCR and try to spread opportunities, inclusive opportunities all over the Philippines, in key growth areas, and create also economic opportunities in these key areas outside Metro Manila, and that's what the proceeds of MREIT effectively will do. It's to enable us to embark on nation building effectively, by helping create economic growth in new areas all over the country. So we've earmarked the proceeds for 21 projects, 15 of which are going to be new BPO office buildings, which we are planning to build in places like Pampanga, Bacolod, Davao, Cebu, Iloilo. So, and then of course, part of the proceeds also is, we're very big with tourism. We are currently the largest hotel operator as well in the country. We have combine our group, AGI group, which includes Megaworld and Travelers, we have about 6,500 hotel room keys all over the country. We believe that that's another sector that we should be promoting. Of course, now during the pandemic, it's unthinkable, but post-pandemic, I think there's going to be a huge rebound in tourism, and it's a low-hanging fruit for the Philippines to continue to expand that. So we are also investing in tourism in different tourism estates all over the country. We have a lot of natural resources here, beautiful beaches. We plan to deploy some of that there. And then, of course, we have also allocation just for general development, to expand our reach and create more economic opportunities outside NCR.
Got it. And you mentioned a lot about BPOs, and as far as I know, Eastwood, McKinley Hill, and your properties in Iloilo are predominantly filled with BPO companies. But a lot of people are asking, do you have exposure into POGO? Does any of those properties have any POGO tenants as well?
We have a very low exposure now to POGO. We're less than 5% for the whole group. That means for our whole portfolio. Okay. For MREIT, there is zero POGO exposure, like zero. And in fact, in those 3 townships, there are no POGO tenants as well. Not even within the townships that I have that we are putting in: Eastwood, McKinley Hill, and Iloilo Business Park.
You mentioned about the 10 buildings. No, right after that, do you have plans to add to those buildings, or for quite some time we'll just be using those 10 buildings to generate the rental revenue?
Our total portfolio today for our offices is 1.4 million square meters, and MREIT is only 16% of that portfolio, right? So, we have a very long runway for growth still for this for our MREIT. The objective of the group is to eventually put in, all the assets into MREIT.
Whoa.
And or a significant portion of it, right? And our goal is to be the largest office REIT in Southeast Asia by floor area, because the largest right now is around, I think around 500 to 1 million square meters. I think there are developers in Singapore that have 1 million square meters office spaces. We are already at 1.4, so potentially we can reach that target. Now, Megaworld as a company, we used to build 100,000 square meters every year. Of course, during the pandemic, we slowed that down a bit. But right after we launch MREIT, we're definitely going to go back again to doing 100,000 square meters of new office spaces every year. So as we build more new spaces, we also inject some mature spaces. So it's going to be like an accretive cycle that only Megaworld can actually do, because we not only, building office buildings is easy, but having the land to build it on is the concern. You need to have the land, you need to have the townships, you have to have the population, just to name a few factors that you need. So, but since we have a vast land bank, we are able to do this accretive cycle. So this REIT, if you're from that perspective, will continue to grow in size. So from 225,000 square meters today, within the first year, can jump up immediately already to maybe 300,000, maybe in the next year, 400,000, 500,000, and so on and so forth, until we hit. The goal is really, we want to be 1 million square meter REIT in the next, in the next 5 years, siguro. And that will make this REIT a sizable challenger in a regional perspective or regional context.
And that's what makes it interesting, because from an investor standpoint, you're not just banking on the appreciation of the price based on its current form and the dividends that you would get, but merely acquiring more into the REIT will make the REIT more valuable, and it will benefit investors like me in the future also.
Our contractual escalation rate is anywhere from 5% to 10% among our 85 tenants within this REIT. So, and that's stable, and that also provides you what we call organic growth, right? So every year your dividends actually increases as well because of the increase in the rental rates that happens on a contractual basis.
Just to follow on what you said, about raising rental rates, how do you see that over the next 1 or 2 years? Right now that we're on a pandemic, has that been affected, or since you're catering to the BPO market, it's virtually unchanged of sorts?
Yeah, the Philippine office sector actually has been, I think, the most resilient in the region. Other markets, the office sector, because of the pandemic, office rents have dropped, and they were not able to even. It's been rolled. The rents have been rolling back in certain countries, in certain regions, just near us. No? Philippines is the only region that actually still grew, and that's precisely because we are targeting mostly BPO clients. And the BPO industry, even at the height of the pandemic, it was one of the very few industries in the Philippines that still registered positive growth, and it was the only industry that still, despite the challenges, continued to hire more people. And that just shows you the strength of this industry. And that's why, when you look at the office rentals as well, actually, we were able to maintain the rent. There was no discounting or rollback. In fact, we were even able to, follow the rental the rental escalation rates. No, of course, during the height of a pandemic, we gave deferments. No, meaning you pay the rent later on, but not necessarily discounting, just deferring lang. But that's already done. This year and next year, our outlook is very, very, very optimistic for office, because the US, which is the primary source of clients for our BPO industry here in the Philippines, is already on an economic rebound, as you can see. Sectors that were affected last year, like travel, airlines, those were all, they're all put on hold. But this year in the US, those sectors have already rebounded. And as a result, there has been renewed interest again to take on more spaces actually from our portfolio, and we expect that to continue, the momentum to continue all the way to next year and even the year after. Every time there is a big crisis or recession, and we've seen this in the past, the succeeding years are huge growth years for BPO sector. We've seen this in 2001 when the dot-com crisis happened in the US and 9/11 happened. The following years, growth years for BPO. That was actually the start of the BPO sector in the Philippines. And then you had also the subprime crisis in the US, 2008, 2009. From 2010 onwards, you saw tremendous growth years for BPO sectors, and we expect the same to happen here during this latest one. No? And of course, whenever the US is in recovery mode, they outsource quite a lot of jobs here to the Philippines, and we're seeing that already as early as now.
Got it. And it's nice to know, and the numbers naman back it up talaga, that after a crisis, after a recession, it's followed by very, very strong economic recovery.
Our REIT is predominantly in Metro Manila, okay, and half of our REIT is in Port Bonifacio area. That alone is a very superior proposition.